the beginning of any open beta or really any card game, budget decks are sort of the backbone of getting players really interested in the game and starting their first deck and building their collection. And a lot of times you end up with these sort of linear aggressive decks, mainly around creatures and just attacking. It can be kind of boring. So I wanted to make sure that as far as any of the budget decks that are out there is concerned, I wanted to bring out a really cool one. And this one, I'm calling it just Turbo Dragons, where the whole idea of the deck pretty much is to get out something like this terragon or a lantern colossus out as soon as possible. And we're going to be doing that on the back of a really cool card here. It's a spell called Foul Harvest. Foul Harvest lets you sacrifice one of your minions to gain 4 life and 3 temporary mana. So using the 1 to play the spell, and then the 3 temporary mana essentially nets you 2 additional temporary mana to be able to go into a big terragon or a big lantern colossus. And the other card that actually is going to be giving us some temporary mana is this imperative bell. So we're going to talk about the mana part of this because it's a little bit more of the complicated part, and instead we're going to kind of talk about just a lot of the random idiots that are in here that are essentially just to be used for foul harvest or to generate some of the cards that they do. So Clay Effigy is the only 2 rare cards you're going to see in the entire deck. This can be replaced by anything else, but it's the only 2 rares. It just creates a 0/1 statue in the lane and draws a card. It's just a nice way to be able to cycle. Maze of Iyatiku allows us to just draw more cards, can get in the way. Another very cheap way to be able to use our Foul Harvest. Full 3 of the Steam Buns. It can sacrifice itself to draw a card. It makes another of one of these items. You're going to notice a bit of a theme here. Battle Chef also does something very similar. Comes into play, gives us a walk shield. Sword Saint comes into play, gives us a bitey blade. Shoutouts to the placeholder art here that gives a minion +1/+1 in life tap. So we have a lot of these just small value creatures along with Tong Foot Soldiers, which does 2 damage to a minion in the opposite lane. So a lot of these just cheap small creatures to get in the way and to give us some items for our really big dudes. Terragon and Lantern Colossus are the most ideal, realistic part of the draw. Sometimes you can get a turn 2 6/5 back alley Ronin if you play something that can attack, like Tong Foot Soldiers or Steam Bun on the first turn, and on the second turn you play Foul Harvest. It'll get you 4 Magicka, and that'll be able to play a really big back alley Ronin. So he's there for the really high roll draw here. We're running 3 Muttonmorphoses just as some removal spell to be able to get some big things out of the way, and that pretty much gets the whole deck rolling here. Imperative Bell is a very interesting card, needing to note that you gain the 2 temporary mana if it happens on your opponent's turn, but that temporary mana is going to continue on to your turn. So if let's say that on turn 1 you play a Tong Foot Soldiers, on turn 2 you play an Imperative Bell and you use the utility action on the Foot Soldiers and it dies, you'll get that 2 temporary mana, and if you don't spend it you can go to your next turn, have that 2 mana, and be able to get something like a terragon out. So the idea of the deck is to try to get a terragon out on turn 3, try to get a back alley Ronin out on turn 2, or a Lantern Colossus on turn 3 ideally. Bit of a high rolly sort of deck, but it is pretty fun. You can get some crazy draws that are very difficult for a lot of decks to be able to deal with. We have Turn of Seasons as our path, and we have Infuse as our power. Unfortunately, this is actually, as I'm recording this, the maintenance is going to be starting very soon for for open beta rather. So I wanted to get this video at least started. So stay tuned for gameplay with this deck. But for now, here's the list. Give it a try as soon as you can. Open beta coming out September 19th, shortly after this video does go out. So we'll see you there.